If you've ever tried to write a book, but you stopped before completing it, watch this video. All right, I'm going to share with you exactly what it takes, why we're stopping, why you're not able to finish your book, and what you can do instead to massively increase the odds of finishing a book that will not only change your life, but thousands and hundreds of thousands and even millions of other people's lives. Now, I want you to know something. If you haven't finished your book, if you started writing and then you stopped, if you tried doing it multiple times, you're not alone. And you're probably not lazy. The vast majority of people who want to write nonfiction books, they get inspiration, they start writing. When motivation stops, they stop. And they go in this endless cycle, never getting to the point where they can actually finish, even though they have so much to offer, so much to share, and so much value to add. And so here's what a lot of people don't really recognize, is that it's not motivation that is the trigger of whether you're going to finish the book or not finish the book. It's more about the structure and the process. And this is the same thing that I've used to write 4 best-selling books. I wrote my first best-selling book. It was about 120-ish pages at 23 years old. I just wrote my 4th book. It was 32,000 words for the rough draft. I did that in 17 days, spending less than an hour a day. Okay, so what I really want to share with you is that if I could do it at 23, if I could refine it by 30, then you can do this with your years of experience, your years of knowledge, and your awesome expertise. And that's what it's all about. If you're writing a nonfiction book, it's because you're trying to help somebody. You're trying to take what you know and you're trying to turn it into something that can actually make a difference for someone else. And in the meantime, potentially grow your business, have a bigger impact, land speaking gigs in the process. And so I'm going to break down right now the 4 most common failure points that I see when people are trying to write books, especially if they're trying to write books for the very first time. Number 1, the failure point number 1 is the blank page problem. All right, most people, what they do is they get excited. They're like, I'm writing a book. They open a Word document. They open a Google document, and there's the blank page. There's the cursor that's just blinking. Right? It doesn't make a sound, but you see it blinking, and in your head, you're thinking the sound. But the problem is there's no clear process. The problem is it's based on motivation. It's based on hope. It's based on just hoping and thinking that, oh, I'm just going to sit down for the very first time and just write a full-length book. But unfortunately, that's not the case. Okay? Even professional writers get writer's block and they have time to struggle. And so what we really want to do is to understand a few fundamental truths. Number 1, you may or may not be a professional writer, and that's okay. But you are an expert on your topic. And you're not trying to write a book the way books used to be written. Okay, and so it's really important that you give yourself the permission to understand that you don't have to do it the way you see in the movies. You don't have to do it the way that you think it's supposed to be done. You're an expert. You talk. You can share your knowledge. If you can talk for 4 hours about yourself and your expertise, you can write a full-length book that can generate millions of dollars of revenue on the back end. So the first step is not just about writing when you get motivation, and it's not even about writing the book. It's about properly preparing to write. And we'll go over what you need to do after we go over these 4 failure points. The second failure point that a lot of people have when they're trying to write a book is that they do not have a clear idea or a clear structure on how to actually write a nonfiction book. And what happens is a lot of people, again, they start writing and they think that they're just going to be able to teach everything they've ever learned, or they're just going to try to share their entire life story. But the problem with that is that a book doesn't need everything you've ever learned or everything you've ever experienced. A book just needs the right amount of information that will help the reader get the result you want them to get. And so what's important to note here is that you are an expert. You know your subject better than almost anybody. But you struggle with figuring out which idea to pursue, or how do you actually take what you've known and what you've learned and distill it into an easily digestible book. And that's the problem. And so what happens is people go in a circle. Okay, they go in the hamster wheel of ideation. Either they have too many ideas and they're not sure which one to pick, so they never make progress, or they don't know exactly what to write, but they know a book will help their business. They know people want the book, but they aren't sure how to distill it or where to actually begin with the structure. And so what you need to do first and foremost is you want to strategically design what you're going to write before just writing the book. And by doing this, you're going to be able to have a lot more clarity around what it is that you are trying to say. Now, The third failure point that a lot of people have when they're trying to write a book, and I've heard this time and time again, and a lot of people that I talk to, they've tried writing a book and they stopped. They have 45 different journals and they've never been able to create a book. And so the third failure point is that you don't have a clear audience and a purpose. So let me break this down for you. Oftentimes, and you can even think about it, when people start businesses, they're like, I want to help everybody. And you probably can't help so many people. But if you try to write a book to helping everybody, it's going to make it much, much, much harder for you to be clear in your messaging and for you to distill your message into an easy to understand way that will actually help somebody. So the failure part of this and where people get hung up on is they try to write the book for everybody, or they try to write a book for a huge group of people. When in reality, I want to just encourage you to think about the one perfect person. Who's the one perfect person that if they read this book, they would tell all of their friends the amazing results they've gotten just by reading this book? And the second part of this is you don't have a clear intention. So you're writing it because you think you should, because you think you could get some results. But if you write knowing that you want to use this book to get speaking gigs, use this book to generate leads, use this book to impact the next generation, use this book to get more clients, well, that helps us create clarity around our audience, clarity around our message. And so now we know exactly how we're going to actually write this book, which makes it so much easier to get your rough draft out. I'll give you another example. Okay. When I talk with people, and I talk with thousands of people every single year about the book world, and a lot of them say, oh, I want to write a book. And I say, okay, who are you writing this book for? And they go, well, I want it to help every person who's post-college and has a job. Okay. And then I say, well, like, who's the perfect person? And they tell me, well, the person I know who this book is for is really, it's me. It was me when I was 27 years old trying to climb the corporate ladder. And I go, okay, that's great. Could you speak to you at 27 years old, working your way through corporate America a little bit more clearly than you can speaking to every person who has a job? Yes, of course. That's the shift. That's the aha. That's when you now can know exactly how to position what it is that you're doing. Let's move on to the failure point number 4, is that people try to do it all alone. Now, here's what's funny. I worked with the Los Angeles Lakers. I've worked with the NBA, a lot of NBA players, and none of them have ever made it to where they are without the help of coaches and a staff. LeBron James is rumored to spend $1 million a year on his body. He hires professionals who know what they're doing to help him so he doesn't have to make the mistakes and he can have longevity in his career. The same thing goes with writing. If you're not a trained writer in the nonfiction world, and even if you are a trained and great writer, have you ever written a nonfiction book designed for back-end optimization? No, you haven't. Okay? And so don't expect to be perfect. Don't expect to try to do it alone and have it be the perfect thing ever. This is where a lot of people get stuck. They try to write because you're smart, you're talented, you know your shit. And I get that. But that doesn't mean you know how to structure a book. It doesn't mean you know what material you should include. It doesn't mean you know when and how to share this information or what information is even relevant in the first place. And so stop trying to do it all on your own. Instead, try to find some accountability. Try to find some clarity. Try to find some structure. And the beautiful part about this is that when you do this, you'll write your book exponentially faster and it'll be exponentially easier. Okay, so trying to do it all alone makes it really, really difficult. All right, so those are the 4 failure points that a lot of people fail when they're trying to write a book, but then they don't actually ever finish it, let alone get it to publication. And so what I want to do here is I want to break down now some of the things that I believe are the most important things that you can do if you've tried writing a book or if you're thinking about writing a book so that you can actually have success. Now, this is really important that I want to address here. You do not have to be a great writer to write a great book. You don't even have to like writing to write a fantastic book. And you know how I know this? Because that's me. I don't love writing. And I don't consider myself to be the best writer in the world. But what I do believe is that I have a great message, I have great experiences, and I have great knowledge that if I can put that into a book, I can help a lot of people. Okay? Now, the old way of doing this, the old way of writing, was that you had to love writing, you had to really want to write. The new way of doing this is leveraging your expertise and your experience and packaging it in a valuable way that ultimately creates authority and helps people. So you're not trying to write a 400-page book anymore where you got to sit there, figure it all out, create all these things. No, you're trying to create a 150-page value-based book that will allow people to get to know who you are, what you stand for, what your methodology is, and how it can actually help them get a great result. What used to be the norm, locking yourself in the cabin in the woods, growing the grizzly beard, coming back after months or even years of laborious writing efforts, no longer the case. You just need to dedicate a little bit of time each day or a couple time blocks a week, and you can have a rough draft done in 30 days. All right, we see this over and over and over again. You're an expert. Do what you do best and share what you do best, but just do it in the way of the written word. All right, and that's the shift. All you're doing is packaging the information you already know, love, teach, and get paid for into a way that is capable of being a book. Okay? And so that's the most powerful thing. So to increase your odds of success, let's walk through exactly what you really need to do before you write another word. All right? Step number 1 is you need to define your audience. As I talked about earlier, the clearer your audience is, the easier it becomes to write your messaging. Now, how do you know what audience is best for your book? Well, think about this. We call it the KPP process. Knowledge, people, profit. Knowledge. What do you know? What do you get paid to teach? What do you already talk about? Okay? What are people already asking about? People. Who needs what you have to share? Who specifically will benefit from what you have to share? Oftentimes, this is you before your transformation. Other times, it's the people you've grown to work with, and you love working with that group of people to help them get a specific result. And then the P, profit. Does your audience that you're trying to help, assuming you're using this book to grow your business, does this audience have the ability and are they willing to pay for what you have to offer? If you're writing a book that you want to generate business on the back end, and you want to make sure you're writing a book to actually convert on the back end. The next thing you want to do is define your intention. Why are you actually writing this book? By doing this, you'll be able to continue writing even if motivation is fleeting. You'll be able to have a reason bigger than yourself. And here's how to think about it. What's the gut call? What's the intention, the internal reason that you are writing this book? The second thing to ask yourself is, what's the external intention, the validation? Why are you doing this? And then the third reason is define success for your book. How will you define success? Is it 50 reviews, 1,000 sales, 4 new clients, 3 new speaking gigs, a message that comes via email of someone who read your book and said that you changed their entire life? How would you define success? The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to commit to book time. So every one of us has a different schedule and every one of us works differently. But after working with 250 plus authors and helping them go through this process, there are 2 ways that you can commit to book time. Number 1 is you can break down every single day a small little piece of time. So this is my personal preference when I'm writing a book, is I will block off 30 to 60 minutes every single day at the same time if possible, and I will commit that to writing. That way I can build a habit of showing up, I can commit to being there, and that's all I'm focused on. I make it a priority and I commit to it. The other way that a lot of people like to do, especially busy moms, busy entrepreneurs, is time block. This is where you set out 2 to 3 chunks of 90 minutes to 120 minutes to even 3 hours. And you just set up these blocks. And in that time, that's all you're doing. This is really great for people who might need a little more time to get into the zone. So you can use the first 15 minutes to get in the zone, to reread some of your existing material, your outline. And then you can go ahead and really get into flow state and make a ton of significant progress. Either way, find what works for you. Test it. Try it out. Are you a morning person, an afternoon person, an evening person? Do you have kids? What's your work schedule like? Are you Pacific time? When's your team working? These are all things that will really help. So when you define your knowledge, you define your intention, and you commit to book time, you've now significantly increased your chances of being successful when you write it because you have more clarity, you have a stronger reason of doing it, and you know exactly when you're going to be able to commit time to this. And then the last thing, and I'm not going to go too deep into this, but I want to share this. I have other videos on this, is before you write, outline your book. And the way you do that very simply, okay? And again, I have other videos on how to outline your book, but very simply is document everything that you can teach, your process, your framework, your lessons, your methodology, how you do certain things, how you would teach other people to do those same things. And then document everything that is relevant to support. Document your personal stories, your transformations, the questions you're already being asked, the case studies, the testimonials you have. And then what you're going to do is you're ultimately going to combine the lessons you've learned and the things you can teach with the experiences you've had, and you're going to create an outline that puts this in the order of which the reader needs to learn the information, not the order in which you learned it. Because if you learned it in the proper order, you probably wouldn't have had the struggles that you went through to figure out the better way of doing things. So your book is not in the order of your life per se. It's the order of which the reader needs to learn the information to get the result they actually want. All right? And so as we start wrapping this up, you might be thinking, okay, this is great, but what if I try again and I stop again? I get it. I've seen this happen many, many times before. Number one is recognize you're not alone. Number two is it's okay to ask for help, okay? And number three is make sure you find the right process, the right team to work with. Whether that's us or whether that's someone else, my intention is that you know who you can call when you need the support. And so I want to give you 2 additional resources to help you hopefully never experience this again, or if you're writing a book for the first time, to get it done in the next 30 days. And here's what I want to share with you. Number one is I want to give you a free copy of my book, Big Idea to Bestseller. This is the step-by-step roadmap on how to write, publish, and launch a nonfiction book. So give that to you completely for free. Go to bigideatobestseller.com/free-book and just grab your copy. We'll mail it directly to you anywhere in the world. And the second thing is if you want help to actually map out your book and to figure out how you can add revenue from this book and how you can actually get this book done as a busy person, then go to bigideatobestseller.com/call. You can book a demo completely for free to speak with my team and to me. And what we'll do is we'll set up a time to chat to really help you outline and brainstorm your big book idea. So there you have it. If you've ever written a book and you've tried and you've stopped, this was for you. I hope that you know that you're not alone. I hope that you know that you can still write a great book and you can turn that book into endless opportunity.